Hi, everyone, and hello. Thank you so much for joining us today, Dr. Matz and Dr. Francois. For those of you who don't know, my name is Maya Trumper, and I'm the president of the Principal Advisory Leadership Board, or PALB, at the high school. And I'd like to start off by just saying thank you so much to everyone in the audience today who came out just to get to know our board and candidates a little better.
Hi guys, I'm Odessa Javier. I am the Vice President of the board. PALB has been working super hard on this event, so I'd like to extend that thank you for you guys showing up. I know the weather is a little bit rough, but we really appreciate you guys attending.
And before we begin, we just have a couple of notes sort of on procedures, and then we'll get right into the questions. So first of all, when you entered, I hope all of you received a comment card, just a little piece of paper. That's just so if any of you have a question during this section or later on, we're gonna invite the current sitting board up to the stage to ask some questions. If at any point you have a question for any of them, you can write that ahead on the comment card and raise your hand, and that will be collected by one of the PALB members who are around the audience now. So at any point, feel free to do that, and then the question will then be sent to us for us to ask the candidates.
All right, and then a few procedure things specifically for our guest. We're not timing you guys on your responses. We want you guys just to, give your honest answer, but also be respectful of the time. This is more of getting to know you. This is not a debate. This is very conversational, very informal, just to kind of gain understanding for the community to the board. That's our goal right now. So not a debate, just trying to keep it lighthearted, kind of fun.
So first of all, I think a good place to start is with a quick introduction. So if you would like to share your name, your connection to this district, and also just why you would like to join the board.
Sure, I'll go first. So hi, my name is Julie Francois. I am a Maplewood resident. My husband and I have lived in Maplewood since 2009, and actually before that we lived in Clayton, but just above Richmond Heights there, above Clayton Road for 10 years while I went to grad school at WashU. By day, my career is I am a global regulatory manager at Bayer Crop Science, Legacy Monsanto. Worked at the bench for a while and then moved my way to a desk job where now I work globally trying to register our products, particularly cotton, so buy cotton. So my connection to the district, I have two kids in the district. Max is in 6th grade. He prefers to go by Maxaroni, so if you hear that name, that's mine. And a 4th grader, Anna. And they have both attended MRH since they were 3 years old. So they've both gone through pre-K all the way up to the grade they're at now. I'm an over-serial volunteer in the district. You've probably seen my name in a lot of different things for PTO, Spirit Wear, Trivia Night. I've raised over $60,000 over the past 3 years at Trivia Night for the district and for our PTOs. And so just love to volunteer, love to help out, and mostly that's because of my kids. I believe in public education. I believe in keeping it public. My son has autism, and so we have actually been turned away from other community type scenarios, daycares, et cetera, due to his autism. And so I know public education is it because they have to take him. And not only do they have to take him, they love him, right? And especially here at MRH, and that's why I'm so passionate.
Yes, so we good? Okay, yeah. So I'm Brian Matz, and delighted to be able to share the stage here with Julie. My wife and I, we have 4 children. We've been living in the district since 2015, and our 4 kids have, one of them has gone through the school district from 6th grade and graduated and is in college. 3 other kids are still in the district, 2 in high school, 1 in the middle school. But we've, over these years, we've been parents of children in all of the buildings of the district. And it's just been such a delight to get to know the teachers and the staff that have supported our kids through all these years. We have just really, really tremendous thanks to offer to the teachers and the staff. They've been wonderful for our kids, providing our kids many opportunities that their prior district did not and was not able to provide. Maplewood Richmond Heights district is a really special district. It provides, we're a small district, and yet we seem to be able to provide lots of great resources and services to students and to families that seem to somehow go beyond what looks like from the outside we should have been able to provide. And so we've been good stewards of the resources that the district voters and taxpayers have provided, and I look forward to being able to serve on the school board for a full term, be able to continue to steward those resources for the benefit of all students. And like Julie, I agree, public education is number one. I'm a product of public schooling myself, and it should remain public, and it should remain fully supported by our state and federal legislators, as well as, I hope, our ongoing taxpayers with these initiatives.
Awesome. Well, thank you guys so much. It's really nice to hear you're very passionate about Maplewood Richmond Heights. We're going to get started with some questions. So the first one being, what is your definition of MRH culture?
Yeah, my definition one of the things I think that, there's probably a number of things to say in answer to this, but one of the things that I feel pervades our culture and is something that is quite special and we ought to continue to nurture is a concern for the education of every single student, a true care for every student and the struggles that they have, the skills that they bring, the gifts and the talents that they have. Every single student who comes into our district has something to offer. And we have teachers and we have staff that take the time to get to know those children and to help plug them in and give them an opportunity to grow, to mature, to really discover more of who they are. And I think that's a real special piece. It's kind of one of those things that it's tough to explain to people on the outside, what makes MRH so special. And it's sort of, well, once you're here, you discover it. And the longer you're in the district, you realize this is a place that has really cared for my children and helped them discover who they are and encourage them to be all that they are capable of being. And so that's been a real delight to be able to witness as a parent, and I hope to continue to nurture on the board.
Yeah, I would definitely agree with all that, Brian, for sure. I especially love when I visit and go to high school events and you just see how in community they are. And, I went to a school where the athletes never mixed with the band students, never mixed with the drama kids. And I don't see that at MRH, and I love that. I think they just have built such a great community, and that's the community I want my kids to grow up in. And so, kudos to you, high schoolers, for having that community and culture already. I'd like to chime in on top of the culture to say that I also think it's the metaphors. I absolutely adore our metaphors. I think they build so much structure for our kids, going from studio to museum to exploring to internship, each one kind of being a nice stepping stone for the kids. And I hope to see the school as a museum, their museum tomorrow, hopefully, barring better weather. Sorry to all those who couldn't make it because of it being canceled tonight at the elementary school. But I think all of those events really build, again, that community and culture and help our students thrive.
I think hearing you guys, we're good? Okay. I think hearing you guys talk about, educating everyone and, everyone bringing value to the school and this conversation of community and, our metaphors in our school districts is absolutely so important. And I think a lot of us can agree that there's something very unique and special about MRH culture, which sort of leads me to ask, how will you on the board continue to collaborate with our district administration to sort of improve that culture, or if there's any flaws you may see, how you intend to better that through your work on the board?
Sure, I'll join in first. I think it's just keeping those lines of communication open and seeing where there needs to be improvements. I think, and especially, with the new NEA, I think that's another way to help build on that culture. It's another way for us to find out as board members, what the teachers really want. It's a direct line of communication. Same with our administration, same with, our parents, right? So it's just being out there, being involved, listening. Like I said, I don't have a high school student, but we love to come to the high school events. My kids love to see it, and they see the high school students, and they say, I want to do that, or I want to be in choir, I want to do theater, et cetera. And so being out there so that parents can see us, families can see us, and they can approach us and let us know when that culture may need some improvement.
I'd like to second what Julie said. Keeping the lines of communication open is absolutely key. One of the things that the board, and it was before I was on the board, but adding student representative to the board, one of the Powell president or vice president, to be able to come and present with the concerns of students. And I know they're also connecting with the students in the middle school and the elementary school who also have their own PAL boards. I think that's just really key. So the CBA meetings that we have, we get to sit and meet with the teacher representatives and hear how things are going. Those have been instructive. Just being in conversation, being available, showing up at events, and letting people come up and talk to you and complain or tell you things they're happy about. I've been treated to it all, and that's been a delight. But being able then to pass that back to the superintendent, and the superintendent then to the staff, I think that is the way that we can serve in that capacity. But primarily, of course, it's the teachers and the staff who are in the building every day that have to maintain the culture. We can just continue to encourage and try and foster it. I'll add one more thing. And maybe gets picked up with a later question relating to the propositions. But the teachers in the district, of course, are with the students so many hours of the day. I mean, my kids spend more hours with their teachers than they do with me each day, and certainly with their friends as well. But taking care of our teachers and providing them a place that they want to come to work and where they're compensated in such a way that they feel proud to be an MRH employee. It's so important because when you have turnover among teachers and things like that, it creates a sort of unsettling aspect for students who are looking forward to seeing their teachers year in and year out, or if they come back after they graduate and want to visit the schools and maybe visit their former teachers. It's great when they're there and they're around and they have a history with families and they get to know siblings. And so just caring for the teachers and giving them an opportunity to be the best that they are trained to be does help promote that kind of culture as well.
All right, it's clear that you guys have kind of thought about this. So you already kind of touched on this next question that I'm going to ask. What broader district goals do you intend to achieve in your time on the board?
I can start. I don't necessarily have a goal per se. I think my goal would be to I won't say to keep things as they are, but with a watchful eye to our state and federal governments, right? I think we have more of a worry than a goal ahead of us, in that you can constantly see in the headlines and the newspapers, wherever you like to get your news, cuts to the Department of Education at the federal level, and then all the different bills attacking schooling and various portions of it, vouchers, et cetera, coming from our own state. And so I think as a school board member, a goal of mine would be to make sure that we are in good shape to weather some of those storms. We know that there is a target on public education, and we need to make sure that we find ways to protect ourselves from that. And I think that if that's a goal, it's a sad goal, but it's one that has to happen.
I'd like to extend those remarks and just say, probably one of the things that I've zeroed in on, maybe because the board elected me treasurer, and that I'm kind of hyper-focused on the fiscal discipline of the district. And one of the things that I would like to see over the next 3 years is that the rate of growth in our expenses it begins to slow down a little bit. So we've had rates of growth in our expenses that have probably outpaced inflation, and there's been some need for that to help improve some salaries. But I hope that the voters next Tuesday will support the teachers and vote in favor of Prop E. But what that will do, that will allow us to position the district for a good financial standing over the next 5 to 6 years, perhaps even longer. But that means we also need to be wise stewards on the board of the resources that the voters have given, and so that we're paying even maybe hyper-focused attention on what are the expenses that we can just trim the rate of growth. The expenses will always keep going up, but we need to find ways to slow the rate of that growth because of some of the things that Julie was talking about in terms of the federal government threatening cuts and things like that. we should be prepared for that. You're hearing in the news lots of districts that are finding this to be quite a concern. We don't have the percentage of our budget that comes from federal resources is not as significant as some of the other districts in the county. And those are districts that are quite concerned. We should have some caution, but I think we can weather these sorts of storms if we're concerned about some fiscal discipline and being wise stewards of what the taxpayers give us.
Thank you for that. And I think these discussions of budget, as you were specifically talking about, Dr. Matz, I think that is a big point on a lot of community members' minds, right? That was a lot of conversation going on about that in the past year, and I think that communication specifically about that budget is absolutely critical. So how will both of you on the board work to increase transparency or communication between the board and community members, especially when it's something as controversial as the budget that you were just discussing?
Yeah, so certainly the public has an opportunity to come and speak to the board. Very few people choose to take up that opportunity. It's an absolute delight to have folks come and tell us they're not happy about something or tell us they love something. Good, bad, in between. We need to hear from you. We want to hear from you. And when you're on the board, you have an email address and a phone number that's public. And I get emails all the time, every single week. From folks with views, and I welcome all of that, and I try and respond to everyone that I get. So we want you to be in touch with us and tell us of your concerns as you have them, particularly around issues of fiscal discipline. There's not an unlimited stream of resources to the district, and we might reach a point where we have to, I've said this in a public meeting, so I'll just repeat myself here, but we need to get comfortable with the idea of saying, there's some really great things that we are doing or could be doing, but we just don't have the money to afford it, and we want to prioritize some other things instead. And so maybe we need to, close certain activities until we can afford to start new things and make some strategic investments in new areas. I know, for example, well, I probably should stop, but let Julie speak. But there's some planning. There's a planning team that's, just for example, is going to go and visit a company, I guess in Michigan or something, and Mike Dietrich could correct me on this, but they're going to go learn about what classrooms of the future. And so this is an issue where if you vote for Prop B next week, and I hope you do, and we'll have a chance to say more about it when the full board's up here in a little bit. But one of the things in that Prop B is to purchase new furniture for the district. But we don't want to purchase furniture that meets the needs today. We want that furniture needs to last for about 20 years. So what will classrooms 20 years from now look like? What are some trends in teaching and education that would suggest to us how we make a wise investment in furniture, as something as simple as furniture, that would position us to not have to throw it all away and start buy new stuff just 4, 5, 6 years down the road. So it's these kinds of discussions. It's not, we don't want to hurry and make unwise choices. We want to make wise choices, and that involves collecting good data, and I'm grateful that Mike Dietrich and his staff will be looking into things like that. That's just maybe an example, but we're asking you to give us money to do that. But you should know that we are taking that concern and we're taking the trust that you give us in giving us more money seriously. And so that needs to be communicated to the public. And I know Mike said it in the public meeting the other day, but sometimes people don't hear it or maybe miss it. But these are the things that the public should know, that we don't take our service on the board lightly, and we want to be wise stewards. I think I've maybe said that enough. Okay.
You can never say it too much, I think. No, I want to add to the communication piece too that, once again, I look at the crowd, and granted it's raining, but it's the same people that we kind of see turning over and over again. And I don't know, watching online, hopefully we have some new folks and new representation. But I think it's always getting to those people that we don't get to, right? The majority of our residents of Maplewood, Richmond Heights do not have kids in the district, whether they're older and just don't have kids or they send them somewhere else. And so when we bring up budgetary concerns and we ask for more money, we're asking people that don't necessarily have skin in the game other than the fact that they have a home and their home value is reliant upon the school board or the school district. And so it's how do you communicate with those people, right? I mean, what methods do they use? Do they use email? Do they use Facebook? Do they use Instagram? Do they use Twitter? Do they use smoke signals? What is that communication? And I know on the PTO, we've always asked, what form of communication? And you get a slew of answers, and then people still will say, well, I didn't hear about that, right? And so it's finding those ways, and I give props to the district for sending out our first newsletter in forever, our first paper newsletter to mailboxes and letting people know what's going on. It's things like that and making sure that our community members who maybe don't attend these forums or don't have students in the school or just are too busy, they're a single parent and they just don't have the bandwidth for this. How do we boil it down to things that they can hear and understand and get what they need to and keep going, right? And especially right now where we've just got doom scrolling and everything else going on, how do we show them what's really good about our district right now so that they do want to invest in it and keep it going?
Thanks. If we don't have any questions from the audience, this might be one of our last ones. If you do, feel free to raise up your card and one of our PAL board members will come and collect it. But you guys spoke a little bit earlier about being advocates for public education. So what do you guys think are the biggest challenges facing students today, and how will you use your role on the board to support them?
Well, I'll go on that one for sure. I think it's being able to show up authentically, right? You have the pressure of the outside world trying to tell you that you can't be authentic and you can't be yourself, and you want to be able to still do that at school. And I think it's making sure that we protect that where we can, right? We have state bills and federal bills that are trying to do that. I want you to come to school and learn, right? Be you, show up, learn, right? Do not worry about those troubles. We're the adults. We fight those troubles. And I want to make sure that that continues. And so I see that as the biggest concern for students.
Yeah, that's excellent. Just enjoy being a student, enjoy this time of life and the opportunity to get to be with friends, make friends, have difficulties with friends, and learn how to work through those sorts of things. Enjoy learning calculus and algebra and biology and chemistry and things like that. Just, that should be the time, and enjoy being in clubs and sports and things like that. And I hope we continue to provide a good wide range of experiences for all of our students. I agree with Julie that, we need to be the advocates. There's, we are fortunate to have good partners with the Missouri School Board Association that helps us. They keep us aware, apprised of things that are happening in the state legislature. And I hope that our school board continues to partner well with MSBA, and even as individual members. I want to shout out Katie Kaufman, who helps keep us, reminds us when there's an opportunity for us to send a letter to our legislators, and that's been really helpful. Sometimes even we get busy and can miss things, so she's been a tremendous help in that. But for us to be advocates and to write to our legislators, I make phone calls to their offices, I send emails and tell them to cut out some of the nonsense that they're engaging in. Our kids are worth it, and they're worth every investment that this state can provide. And I hope that we continue to fight well for that.
And then kind of on that note, what about our teachers? What are the biggest challenges facing them, and how will you use your role to support them?
Probably, one of the challenges, I don't know if, that's a good question. Probably it's best to ask the teachers what are the biggest challenges facing them. They do, get a chance to share with us in our CBA meetings. But, perhaps one of the things, I've been a teacher for 21 years, so one of the things is just, what keeps me going, what keeps me energized, it's the delight in engaging with students and not feeling burdened by a lot of administrative, I'll just call it nonsense. Now, I've become an administrator, and now I'm one of the people that the faculty complains about, but as a dean. But but for the most part, there's a need to just free teachers as much as possible from the paperwork aspects of the job, to let them just enjoy the time of being with students, teaching the subject that they love, and having the skills and the resources that they need to be able to do that. So our investment in professional development, our concern to make sure they have the educational resources that they need to grow in their profession, maybe to add new degrees or certifications. These are the kinds of things the board can be involved in to help strengthen the environment for teachers. Pay is always going to be one thing, but sometimes just a supportive principal, somebody coming by and saying, thanks for what you're doing, a student writing a letter even years after graduation saying that was really tremendous. And so I don't know, there's a number of ways in which teachers can feel appreciated and supported and encouraged. It's probably every teacher, it's going to be slightly different, but I hope that we are we're multifaceted in our approach to encouraging and thanking and honoring the teachers. I know Julie and the PTO has provided, meals and snacks and other gifts from time to time for teachers, and that's just tremendous. And my family and I, we also have provided gifts and things. When you typically around Christmas time, before the winter break. But all through the year, teachers should give us a little gift of thanks, a meal or some snacks or a letter, something that expresses in concrete ways the things that they've done that have been impactful for the students. So anyway.
No, agreed. Yeah, challenges for teachers. I agree. We should probably ask them. But if I had to guess, I think they probably feel similar to the students. They just want to show up, like you said, and not worry about that outside world coming in, right? You want to. Oh, excuse me. Oh, it'll be fine now. No, it's not worrying about that outside world coming in, right? And being able to just teach, do what they love, and not have things that are in the way. And then, I'll follow up on the PTO thing. Staff Appreciation Week is the first week of May, and so the PTO will be hitting you up for money. So while I have a mic, I'm going to say, watch your email and Facebook and whatever else and give some money. But we'll have the coffee trucks again at every building, so it's worth it. But there are challenges, and I hope with the NEA and back to seriousness with the NEA and our collaboration with the teachers, and staff too, that they let us know what those challenges are, and if they are things that as a board, we can certainly address and tackle.
Thank you both so much for sharing. We have our first audience question of the night, so I'll go ahead and pose that. Federal government cuts, changes, and laws were mentioned frequently. How do you plan on dealing with budget cuts, curriculum changes, and social needs of the students and teachers despite this?
That's a lot of that's a lot of things to address in one. Yeah, it's tough to have one particular answer to this. I'm not afraid of the federal budget cuts. I don't know. First of all, there haven't been any federal budget cuts yet. Nothing. So there's a certain. I don't want to live in fear. I want to be prudent in how we plan for the future. But what we have is we're set for next year, and let's do what we can to prepare ourselves for the year after that. Let's work well with the resources we have to plan ahead. But this district should not live in fear. We're not alone, so it's not like the federal government's coming after Maplewood, Richmond Heights, right? If they're going to come after public education, I think there's a lot of steps between threats made by certain politicians and the actual cutting of resources. And there's a lot of intervening agencies. I don't mean government agencies. I mean just individuals and groups and organizations. People who have agency can step in and try to mitigate or eliminate these problems. So I'm not living in fear. I don't think we have to worry about these things, certainly for the next year, and let's cross that bridge when we come to it. But being prudent, wise stewards of what the voters give us is absolutely important, absolutely critical to provide, making our district a place that it can be resilient in the face of ups and downs in funding. And, and that's one thing to be monitoring, if, again, for the public, as you look at budget documents that our district produces and makes available at public meetings and on our Assembly Board website, is one thing to track is the fund balance percentage. That's telling you how much wiggle room we have to ride out financial storms. And, that number has been going down for a number of years. The ability to bring that back up with Prop E is really important. Prop E allows us to ride out some financial storms should they come. I'm one that doesn't think they will come, but I'm not as worried. But even if you are worried or you think it will come, a higher fund balance percentage protects us to a certain extent from these things. So being a district that doesn't spend every single dollar that comes in, but sets a little bit aside for the rainy day, which we have done in the past, and and now we're ready to make a move back up again with Prop E. But being able to set aside a little bit each year and not spend every dime, that allows us to ride out these kinds of storms. So anyway, and because we can do that, because we have a substantial enough fund balance percentage, we do not have to cut student services. We can continue to meet student needs. We can continue to provide a solid education for the students, particularly those who have the greatest needs in our district. And we should not shy away from that whatsoever, and do not live in fear of politicians' threats. I just don't think that's a wise way to go.
Well, if you don't do the worrying, I'll do it for you. Then we'll offset each other, because I do worry a little bit more having a student on the spectrum, and I'm worrying that that the SSD, looking at their balance and their budgetary concerns going on, it's a little more worrisome for me, and especially because if we do cut the federal budget, if and when it would come, that's a lot of those Title I funds and things that are for students with disabilities, and so those are targeted attacks, in my opinion, against our DEI, and that does bug me and bother me and keeps me up at night. Only, I think, more of the mama bear in me than the budgetary concerns. But back to Brian's point, I think with Prop E, we will build that nest egg back up again, and we'll be in a better space than a lot of our neighbors at that point, which I think is good. I don't want to put them down, but I think Maplewood MRH has done a great job of making sure that we are good stewards and we keep that fund balance where it should. So it's just I think it's not necessarily cutting things, right away. It's just keeping an eye on things, right? Let's pay attention to what's coming. If and when those cuts come, we will have some warning, and so we'll have some time to pivot and figure out, what happens where and where that can go, and what we'll do with that, and where the monies will come from in return. So I think as a community, don't worry. I think, at least hopefully, this is me speaking solo, worry about those cuts. I think we're in good shape, but keep calling and writing those legislatures, if for nothing else, because what they're doing is wrong.
Thank you both so much for joining us. That's all the questions we have for our two candidates today. We're going to have a brief intermission for us to invite the whole board up to join us. And Dr. Francois, thank you so much for joining us today. But we're now going to have just the sitting board members right now join us. So we'll have a quick intermission before we continue. Thank you both.
So starting off, just a quick little disclaimer. Not everyone should feel pressured to answer questions. So if you feel like a fellow board member answered a question exactly how you would, feel free to, let that be stated just so we can ask you guys more questions and grow more understanding from the community to you guys. All right.
So, first of all, I know we just heard from Dr. Matz, but if the other board members, you would like to introduce yourselves, share similar things, of course, name, connection to the board, how long you've been serving, etc. I think that'd be great.
Sure. Thank you, Maya and Odessa. My name's Katie Kaufman. I am a long-tenured board member here at MRH. I'll be starting my 12th year on the board in April. I have 2 children in the district, a 3rd grader and a preschooler, and have been a resident of Richmond Heights for about 15 years now. So my commitment to the community is deeply seated and will continue for many years.
No, thank you. Hi, my name is Jenny Schmidt. I have been on the board for just about a year. Before that, I did serve on the Maplewood City Council for almost 5 years, so I've got some government experience before that. I have 2 daughters who are both in the high school and have attended MRH since preschool. And I've lived in Maplewood for about 20 years and have an office in Maplewood, so I'm all in.
I'm Trent Colbert. I've been on the board for 1 year. I've been a Maplewood resident for 4 years. And yeah, that's about all.
Guys, thank you guys for that. We're just going to jump straight into it. So safety is an ever-present concern for all schools across the world. Moving forward, what do you think our top safety priorities should be?
Well, Odessa, I don't have to tell you about how important gun safety is to our community. Thank you for being a voice of encouragement in our community about common sense gun laws. And the board, previously has issued, resolutions in support of common sense gun laws. And obviously that's the physical safety of our kids, our teachers, every individual that is in our buildings is always top of mind. First, the first thing that folks are thinking about. And I know we have already implemented a number of safety measures in the school district that we were able to do under the previous bond initiative. And even this year have increased some of our ability to communicate amongst teachers and staff in buildings during emergencies, which fortunately we've had non-emergencies to allow us to test those out over the past year. At our recent board meeting too, we actually received the technology audit, and I think that brings to mind for me a lot of safety concerns, both for the safety of our students because of the dangers of the internet. I sound really old saying that, but it's true. And I think also the safety of our technology infrastructure. School districts around the country are being targeted by cyber attacks just to shut down the operations of the district. And so I think all of those kind of issues around safety are things that the board and our administration are constantly thinking about and thinking about ways to dedicate appropriate resources to those things, as well as making sure that folks are aware of these safety measures without causing concern, but also not taking these sorts of concerns lightly, too.
And I think I'd also just want to add, Katie did an excellent job of addressing just sort of like what you first think of safety. I think the other thing is the emotional safety of our students, and so how do we protect that? I think Dr. Matz and Dr. Francois, hit on some of the things that are going on, and so I think we as a board, I think this district has always been committed to making sure our students feel safe emotionally in our spaces, and so I think that's something we will continue to do in terms of that type of safety.
I support everything that's been said previously, and the board's role in safety is often to encourage safety, to look at safety issues, and to pay for safety things. So that's the big board issue. As I think about safety in schools, I think about something that's more sort of touchy-feely with in the sense that students treating each other kindly, teachers treating students kindly. Everyone needs to be more kind to each other. If we did that, we'd have safer schools, we'd have less violence, we'd have less sort of harmful interactions.
So it came up quite a few times actually, thinking in addition to the physical safety, also emotional safety, right? So to hit that point a little bit more directly, what are some ways that the board can continue MRH's legacy as a supportive and progressive school district?
Certainly, as the board, the board I would say one of the ways that we want to continue to foster a diverse learning environment and support students from diverse backgrounds is that we cultivate and encourage teachers to continue to cultivate a diverse curriculum and employing resources and texts and videos and projects and stories that help our students feel increasingly comfortable moving about a world that is far more diverse even than when I was a student, and perhaps even in the future will continue to be even more diverse. So we need to encourage and help our teachers do that. From the board side of things, there are certainly resolutions and such, but our primary task around that is just funding the purchase of curriculum and helping give the teachers agency to make the choices that they understand and know based on their own expertise is best for their classrooms, and that we fund those curricular choices as much as possible, such that our education continues, as it has been, to be a place that's welcoming and supportive and encouraging of all of our students.
I would sort of extend on Brian's comments about teacher agency. In my opinion, a lot of the progressive nature of any school comes from the teachers and what they're willing to experiment in teaching. I was a teacher for 10 years, or a professor for 10 years, and I know that every kid that I taught was a different kid, and so I had a large bag of tricks that I would dip into in order to teach any individual student, and from that grows a progressive environment that is going to extend and broaden learning. And then on the flip side of that, I'm going to turn it back on students again. Students bring a lot of their own creativity into the classroom, voicing your opinion, voicing your ideas, taking on projects that are pushing the boundaries of what you really know and what's going on in the classroom. Those are the things that are going to make the school district more progressive and more experimental.
We do have an audience question for you guys as well. So, what types of qualifications, skills, and experience will you all look for when considering applicants to fill the current or future board vacancy?
I'd be looking for someone who is open-minded and willing to engage a diverse range of voices, not only in the community, but on the board itself. So somebody who's projects a sort of a moderate position, not, I don't know if that helps. I could probably say more, but I'm looking for somebody who's here to project moderation and balance and an open-mindedness to learn. That's the other thing too, is it takes a while to learn the job of the board. I'm sure I've made missteps along the way in the last year. I certainly have gotten, I think, better at being a board member. I have much more to learn, but we want somebody who's in their open-mindedness, says, I'm willing to just learn and benefit from the wisdom of those who have perhaps been on the board for longer. So.
Yeah, I agree. I think curiosity is really an essential characteristic, and a self-awareness of the perspectives and potential biases that any individual is going to bring to the boardroom table. We are a continuous improvement district, so someone who is certainly interested and able to look at data and to make data-driven decisions, hopefully based on data-driven questions that are really centered around improvement. And while I didn't jump in on the previous question, I mean, I do think that there is my hope to continue the commitment to using an equity lens as we make decisions as a board. Thanks to the new Assembly board management tool, we actually have that equity lens baked into the agenda items. I don't know that regular community members are opening up every individual agenda item in the Assembly board meeting, but if you did, you would see that our administrators, when they bring forward presentations, are reflecting on a number of questions about who is being impacted, who might be left out, how might we mitigate differences in impact. And I think those are the sorts of curiosities and questions that I would hope anyone who would like to step into this role would bring to the table.
And I think the only thing, that something I would add is an understanding of the amount of work it is, and that they're willing to put that work in and show up prepared and just share their thoughts about it. I think the value of a board is we each have a very different perspective, but together we can really create some fantastic things. So, but just knowing that, there will be work to put in and being ready to do that work. So.
I'm just going to extend off of that, which is to say that a difference of opinion, a difference of perspective, these are not things to be shied away from, that they actually make things stronger, and they bring the best solutions to any one given problem or solution. So, we need people on the board who are going to engage and who are going to bring all of their background and all of their perspectives and really study and understand the issues at hand to come up with the best solutions and decisions.
Thank you all so much. And I know, Ms. Schmidt, you specifically talked about, the togetherness of a board being critical for your success as, of course, the Board of Education. But how would you, as a group, define success for MRH in the coming years and also as a working board?
I'm really appreciative of the work that has been put in to establish the district's really first in a long time, if not ever, strategic plan. That is, a public-facing document that had significant input from community members, parents, teachers, students. And so I do see that as one of the North Stars for us around how we define and measure success in the district. I'm particularly excited as the portrait of a graduate continues to be refined by our district staff. To really, again, I think as many of us have noted, acknowledge that while every student brings a different, perspective, life experience, interest to the classroom, there are some universals that some qualities that anyone who graduates from MRH should be developing from the time they're in the preschool all the way through. And so that to me is really something that we can all rally around as a way to define and continue to point to and mark success as a district.
I think am I right that it was sort of was it a two-parter? Is it success of the district and success of the board? Whatever. Okay. Well, to add to Katie, the success of the district, I think, and to use that to make sure that each student is being allowed the opportunity to learn and grow and reach their potential, and that defines for me a successful district, is that we're educating all students. In terms of the board, I think what makes a successful board is one that listens to each other, understands that we have different backgrounds, different perspectives, but really listens and understands that in the end, a lot of times we actually are closer than we are farther away, and then working together to make good decisions. So that's sort of.
Yeah, just to add a brief thing to what Katie and Jenny have just said, are the students ready when they graduate for what comes next for themselves? Are they prepared for college? Are they prepared to enter the workforce? Are they prepared for the next task that's in front of them? Have we given them the tools of a certain sort of self-regulation, a capacity to think for themselves, a capacity to be civically engaged? Those are big kind of maturing, adulting kinds of steps, and we're trying to get them closer to that stage. The next steps will help them further in that, but we want them to feel prepared and ready to enter whatever life is prepared for them after they graduate. I would say that's certainly a mark of success for our district if we continue to do that.
Thank you guys so much. We're going to transition a little bit into some questions about the upcoming propositions. So, starting off, in addition to Dr. Matz and Dr. Francois being up for election on April 8th, there are some other important issues on the ballot like Proposition B and Proposition E. Can you first explain what Prop B is and how it would work if it is passed?
Okay, Prop B is a proposition that gives the district the ability to sell bonds which allow us to raise money for buildings and for improvements to our capital sort of infrastructure of the campus. So just every district in the state of Missouri, I don't know how far back these laws go, but every district, we can only put money in certain buckets. And so we have a tax that helps fund salaries for employees and pay kind of day-to-day expenses. There's a separate tax for buildings and infrastructure, capital improvements and capital projects. Capital projects at the present time means anything that costs over $1,000. The law is changing, and it's going to be anything that's over $5,000 for next year. So anyway, you get a sense of what constitutes a capital expense. If it's a capital expense, it comes out of this other budget. And so Prop B is asking you, the voters, to give us the permission to go and sell up to $15 million of bonds, and those bonds will allow us to make capital improvements. We may need all 15 million, we may not. It will depend on the needs of the buildings. If you were at the board meeting a week or so ago, or you want to go back and look at the presentation online, Cordigan Clark is a company we hired that gave us a very thorough set of documents, and you can read all the documents, everything's public, that tells us the exact condition of every one of our buildings, all 4 school buildings plus the administrative offices, and they tell us what we need to do in year 1, year 2, year 3, all the way down to year 20. Actually, it goes beyond 20 years. But it gives us some guidance on what we need to do to make sure the buildings are in a proper shape to educate our students in the best environment possible. So Prop B is giving us the permission to do that. Here's the really cool thing, though, and some of it's, you feel it if you've been living in this district for a while, is the assessed values of the homes in Maplewood, Richmond Heights has gone up so much that we can actually issue $15 million in more bonds and lower your tax rate on the bonds. So we can actually take out more bonds, and give you a tax cut. That's how much wiggle room we have because of the improvements in the home values of this district. And so I know you haven't asked about Prop E, and so I'll reserve comments for that later, but because we can give you a tax cut and issue bonds for that side of the ledger of the district, that allows us to ask you to raise your tax somewhere else, but they net out to no tax increase to residents. So I could say a lot more about that, but I'll let my colleagues jump in if they want to do that.
Hello, okay. This has proceeded in a series of steps. Mike Dietrich and his team went through the buildings, all of the buildings. We have 4 main sites, and looked for things that needed work, needed repair, needed replacement. They came up with their own list and their own set of priorities of what's the most important priority. So the track outside, high priority. Furniture in the classrooms, especially in the high school, high priority. So they have that list. Then we hired Corrigan & Clark, primarily to have a third party look at the buildings. They're going to look at things a little differently. You know, I walk past the stairs every day and I think they look fine, but when Corrigan & Clark takes a picture of them, you can see that they're pitted from years and years of salt use, and they probably need to be paid attention to. So what Corrigan & Clark gave us was it's not only a list, it's a timeline. When are things going to go bad? So, you know, we have an air conditioner on top here. You know, how new is it? Is it 10 years old, 15 years old, 20 years old? You know, when is its useful life going to be sort of come to an end? You all know, if you own a car at least, you all know if you own an old car, it ends up at some point costing you too much to run. Well, that's kind of where we are for some of the things in our district. This bond is not there to pay for new buildings. It's going to pay for some new furniture, it's going to pay for a new surface on the track, but it's not going to replace the track, or it's not going to breach some newfangled things. We're not looking at those things. Largely, these things are about maintenance and repair. We have delayed a lot of maintenance, and we need to pay for those things so that we can extend into the future. So what is this sort of money? What is it going to pay for? Well, that's kind of one of the things that the Corrigan & Clark report really brings home. And that is that, you know, that with this money, we can pay for 10 years worth of maintenance. We're going to get to the point where we have covered 10 years worth of the costs that we think that we're going to have in the future. So in the 3 years' time that we're going to have these funds, we have to spend the money in 3 years if the voters approve it. We're going to advance our maintenance of the district into the 10-year time period. That's going to give us some more time to think about how do we maintain the district in the future. This board, the 4R Resources Committee, has also been talking about shifting some of the money for maintenance into the operations so that we don't run into the situation again where we need to go out and borrow a huge chunk of money in order to do maintenance. So there has to be a balance between borrowing money through bonds and using money to do routine maintenance in the schools. So Prop B is going to pay for things that you are not necessarily going to see. You're not going to see a new building. You're not going to see, newfangled tech wizardry or anything. You're going to see new air conditioners, resurfaced parking lot, those sorts of things. Okay.
I guess the only thing I wanted to add is just talking about Prop B a little more basically is that this prop gives us the authority to borrow up to $15 million. So we will be very careful to make sure we're spending that money wisely. The district has also, given us, some people may ask, well, the list is only $9 million, that's not 15. And the point is that we all know things are uncertain now about costs with things like tariffs and things like that. So we're trying to be responsible in the way that these costs may go up in a way. And we want to make sure that we're not over-promising and under-delivering. And so that was our attempt to build in a cushion to account for the unpredictability in the economy right now. So, again, we don't have to borrow it all at once. We can borrow at separate times. And so, it's up to $15 million.
Oh, one of the things that would pay for too is the new central office, which we borrowed money under a different mechanism for that, so we could pay off that building completely and pay at a lower interest rate. So it's going to save us money over the duration of paying for that building.
Thank you all. I think that definitely at least makes a lot more sense to me, how that's all going to work. Maybe this is a question that I should be asking Dietrich after this, but hopefully maybe some of you will have the answers so we can clear this up even more for any community members. So if this proposition is passed, right, and we're now able to borrow this amount of money, we can start doing more maintenance, more, resurfacing of the track, I know is a huge one. Do we have any sort of timeline or approximation of time that it will take to get these tasks done, such as resurfacing the track or continued maintenance? Do we have a timeline on that?
We have only been assured that the track and field will be repaired this summer if Prop B passes. That's the only thing I've heard that is far enough along in the planning stage that it's ready to go the moment we hear that Prop B has passed. If Prop B doesn't pass, there's other mechanisms for us to pay for the repair of the track and the field, but you should know that that's going to cause cuts in some other areas if we end up choosing to use other money to make those kinds of repairs. So Prop B, I almost think of Prop B as a no-brainer for the public, because we're actually able to give you a tax cut and issue 15 million more bonds. So it's almost like, why wouldn't you vote for that? It seems kind of silly. You're getting better buildings and a tax cut. And admittedly, it's because the assessed values of homes and businesses in our district continue to go up. And we all benefit from this rise in home values and the great businesses that continue to move here and bring employees and bring in sales taxes, of which we get a small percentage, and raise the value of everything around here. And so it's homes, but it's businesses, and we want to continue to be a school district that makes this an attractive place for families and well, all people really to move to and to choose to invest in our community.
In terms of timeline, as Brian mentioned, the track is high priority. If you think about it this way, anything that we can do before the fall of next year is what's going to be the priority. So those things which are going to impact student learning or student activities by next fall, those are the ones that are going to be hit the first. An air conditioner that it needs, it has 5 years life or whatever left in it, probably going to wait on that one. We have 3 years to spend the money, and we probably wouldn't attack it until later. But the ones that you're going to really see and feel as a student, those are the ones we're trying to hit first.
And I'm going to have Mike correct me if I'm wrong, but we also did, I mean, I know we did this. We did approve at our last meeting Navigate to assist us with this process. And I think one of the services they will offer us is helping us do the bidding and making sure we can do it more quickly. And so I think that will be a great resource in helping us once we, sort of figure out what we have and what we're going to spend it on, move through that process more quickly than if we had to just do that ourselves. So.
I will remind folks that the majority, though, of these projects are the things that nobody ever thinks about and don't see, and so I don't know when the high school roof is going to get repaired. It's going to get repaired. Probably none of us will realize when it is until Mike Dietrich comes to the meeting and tells us that it's been done. So I just want to also, recognize, obviously, our most recent bond issue was very prominently followed by the community because we could have the lovely videos produced by, Ed Rich and his team, and the neighbors all saw this, addition going up in the community. This is a more infrastructure, behind the scenes, but so necessary, not only for like the physical structures of the buildings, but as a former middle school teacher myself, nobody's culture and climate is good when it is 95 degrees in a middle school classroom in May, okay? And so this is also an investment in the climate and culture of the district for our employees, our staff, and for our students.
Great job at explaining Prop B. It made it very easy to understand. So we're going to move on to Proposition E. Can you guys explain this proposition and how it would work if it was passed?
I'll do this one. So as Brian already mentioned, school finance is highly regulated and highly complicated. The biggest bucket of money that MRH has is from our local taxpayers through our operating levy. And that money pays for salaries, benefits, expeditions, services, school lunch programs, and we are asking permission from our community to raise the tax levy for our operations 50 cents, which is the amount we are decreasing the bond levy on the other side of things. So we are asking permission to increase the funding that we are able to put into the operating so that we can pay our teachers more, pay our support staff more, and maintain the other services that make MRH MRH.
And I think the other thing to note, while they are two separate buckets, they do affect each other. So for instance, while you would replace an HVAC using the debt service fund, the capital fund, if you're repairing it, that's the operating fund. So because we have not had the funds to replace maintenance, to do that, we're spending money trying to fix it so that, it is not 100 degrees in a middle school classroom in May. And so we're band-aiding, but we're using funds that we would really like to use for teachers, for students. And so by giving us Prop B funds through that, you're helping us alleviate, the burden on that operating fund, and we will have even more funds to dedicate to things like expeditions, supplies, teachers, staff, salaries, and all of that. So.
Okay, I'm not going to use buckets. I'm going to use bank accounts. So we're asking the voters to shift where we draw money from taxes and put them into two different bank accounts. And we're going to have less going into our capital bank account, and we're going to have more going into our operating bank account. And the effect is going to be largely around paying teachers better. If you've been to any of the past board meetings and were there for the CBA agreement, you know that we are looking at paying teachers more. And why are we doing that? Well, because we are sitting down at the bottom of St. Louis County. We're no longer competitive, and we need to move our salary base up so that we can retain our wonderful teachers like Mr. McCollum, who's sitting in front of me, in our district. Prop E also is going to pay for programs. It's going to allow us to retain programs. If we don't get Prop E, programs start going away. Transportation maybe starts going away. Teachers get grumpy. All those things happen if we don't get Prop E. If we get Prop E, we can sort of get back on track with where we should have been. And when I say should have been, that's because of the way Missouri does tax law, when the Hancock Amendment, we are basically falling behind because we've had a massive inflationary period. And we need to get back to where we are at inflation rates so that we can pay for services, pay teachers at the levels that are being required now.
I want to clarify for people, the Hancock Amendment limits the amount that we can take. So to Trent's point, it's not that we chose not to keep up, it's that we're not able to without voters allowing us to increase the rate above a certain threshold. So.
I think based on those explanations, it's really clear how important these propositions are to our schools' culture, right? Even our community's culture. I mean, I think we can all agree, without teachers, we don't have a school district. So I think these propositions are absolutely critical for our school district, but also, and this was mentioned briefly, but to touch on it more directly, sort of, can you explain broader how these propositions are going to impact sort of our districts in relation to other districts in the St. Louis area?
I mean, Trent was getting to that here a moment ago with his comment. A few years ago, we sat, just to speak to teacher salaries, in terms of buildings and things, we've been doing a really great job because of the earlier propositions that Katie had referred to. So one of the areas that we have been lagging was in teacher salaries. Several years ago, we would have been ranked in the middle of the 21 county districts. Our median pay this year is ranked 17th. And so we've slipped, and we want to get back to what we would think would be competitive, which would put us in maybe the top quartile, or certainly the top third of districts. So voting for Prop E would position us to make our salary scales competitive, such that we would be one of the top 5, 6, 7 districts in the county. And we hope that we'll be able to maintain that position for the foreseeable future with Prop E. Without Prop E, it'll be a lot harder to do that, and it makes it more difficult to not only attract teachers here, but keep the teachers we have. So as many of you, and we all have jobs where you realize pay is about not only recruiting, it's about retaining and rewarding good quality employees. And so we want to be a place that recruits, retains, and rewards very well, and we can do that with Prop E.
I don't want to give the impression that we're trying to get to a particular point in the ranking of salaries in St. Louis. It's a moving target. For instance, just last week, Rockwood voted to give their teachers raises. That raised was not factored in when we were comparing other districts. So if they raise their salaries, then it makes us less competitive against them in terms of their salaries. So it's a moving target. We're doing the best we can to sort of get to a point where we're at a market rate, and that market rate is driven by teachers' feet. Wherever they're going to go, that's where, if the money's better someplace else and they're happier over there, they're going to go there.
One more thing I'll add one more thing, and Katie was speaking to this a moment ago. Again, having happy employees who want to work here, it's not all about salary, it's about having facilities that they want to go to, that they're proud to walk into every day, that the bathrooms are working, the air conditioning's working, the heat's working, they have a desk and a chair that aren't broken. I mean, it's a lot of things. And then they have supervisors who value them and thank them and acknowledge their hard work. So it's a whole package of things, and certainly as the board, we are trying to attend to all of those. As far as next Tuesday goes, we're asking you to help with one of those aspects, which is the salaries, and we have to continue to monitor everything else as well.
And I just want to reiterate that there is no cost to you. There's no increase to your taxes to do this. So, that's your decision, is to provide all this at no cost to yourself. So I just want to reiterate that point.
And I'll add one more thing. The budget that we've been working on, draft budget, still not finalized, but it isn't just about raising the tax rate so that we can have more operating revenue. We're also making $1 million worth of cuts. If we can make more, we will make more to give ourselves more operating room. Okay.
All right, thank you guys. We do have one more question left, and you guys already briefly touched on this, but just to solidify, if these propositions aren't passed, what would that look like for our school district?
Well, there will be a number of cuts in areas that we would not want to make, but would have to make as your representatives, and our fiduciary responsibility to the district and maintaining a budget that's positive and not going bankrupt. So, yeah, there would have to be cuts. I think they're not things that have to be cut right away. Everybody should know it's not the world's not going to be falling apart on April 9th if it doesn't pass. And I think Katie has spoken to this in a past board meeting. We have the funds to meet our commitments for next year and probably even for 2 years. So it's a matter of, like I was saying back when Julie was up here with me, we just need to be attentive to the rates of growth and expenses in certain areas, and we can come back to you next year and ask. Maybe the mood of the electorate will have shifted, and we will come back to you next year if it fails tomorrow or fails next Tuesday. You can count on that. And we have 3 opportunities next year. We only have 1 this year. It's just the April. Next year we have April, August, and November. So we'll come back to you next year because this is needed for the district. And I know maybe my other colleagues don't agree, but the point is, we would have to make cuts in areas, and probably some of the ones that would stand out to people that might come sooner than others is we might have to reduce certain busing options and availability of busing for students who live, right now we meet like a mile. If you live a mile or more from the schools, we can provide busing. Maybe it'll shift to 1.5 miles or 2 miles or something like that. There would be perhaps some changes in professional development funds, certain spending on travel. There's certain things we can cut now that kind of help slow the rate of growth, but the sky's not going to fall next week if it doesn't pass. But you certainly would make our job a lot harder if it doesn't. And it not our job harder. Our job is really your job. I mean, we're your representatives. We're just trying to do what you think is best for your district. And so, yes, it makes our job harder, but really, this is our district. I'm just your voice. Brian Matz isn't anybody important. We work together as a group to help make a district that's great for you and for your kids and for the future generations that will come here.
I do want to note, though, there is a time lag, right, between passing and actually getting the funds. So, yes, if it doesn't pass, we would come back to you, but that just puts off another year before we start collecting, right? So that is the concern. While we feel okay for the next couple of years, there is an urgency in that. Waiting just makes it dicier. The other thing in terms of like what we cut, I mean, it's not. No one's going to enjoy doing it. It's going to be terrible, but I will say I would advocate for community input on that because, like Brian said, we represent you. So I want to hear from you. You know, we would obviously have staff and Dr. Jameson work with our colleagues to figure out what are the possible areas to cut, and then I would advocate for, you know, having some community conversations around that and getting feedback from the community about what things we would cut. So.
Ask us what our favorite project is on the Prop B list.
Katie must have a favorite project.
What's your favorite project?
Did you see that on the list that we sent you?
I did see that. I did my homework in
Well,
advance. Thank you for sending it.
What time is it? We have 2 minutes. I think that's a perfect question. Yes. I think we should ask it. What project are you most excited about?
And you've been sitting in board meetings too, so I want to hear what your favorite projects
okay.
are. I'm very excited about the possibility of a eco classroom at the elementary school for the Seed to Table program, with that design generously donated by Mayor Greenberg.
I'm excited about that furniture, you guys, because I am tired of hearing my kids complain about it, and it's a problem. Like, you guys have to sit in that stuff all day, and so I am excited, and I am excited about the idea of, you know, studying what the classroom of the future is, and making sure, like, that we have furniture that will make you comfortable now and into the future. So I'm excited about that one. That you have.
Track and field for me. My kids use it for sports, and I use it for recreation myself, my wife and I, and I'm very excited about developments and improvements there.
They took all the good ones. I'm excited. Yeah, I'm excited about the 15-ton air conditioning unit on top of the elementary school. It really needs to be replaced, and I would like to see it replaced. I'll be very happy if I'm cool when I go there.
Sorry, real quick about the track and field, though, a point I want to make for the public is that track and field is not just used like for sports. We use that for PE. I know when my kids were in the elementary school, they came over here to run the mile on it. So that is not something, I know it's a really big ticket item on here, but it is used in so many ways beyond after school activities. It's used for all PE. I remember my kids were in the ECC, they'd come over here, so I just wanted to make that point. Sorry. Now you guys.
Okay, I'm gonna have to agree with Dr. Matz. I'm really excited about that track and field. I'm really excited, hey, throwers represent, guys. I'm excited to get proper sizes for the shot put and discus rings, because right now they're wrong, and I'm excited for that to be fixed.
I will also have to say the track and field. I took Mr. McCollum's public speaking class, and I was a TA for it, and every single year someone advocates for a new track and field. So to finally have it, the possibility of it finally happening is super amazing. So that would probably be my favorite as well.
That's a resurfacing.
Oh, my bad.
The field. The field would be.
Field, we're done.
Any last-minute audience questions? Feel free to submit those now in the very last minute. Otherwise, thank you all so much for joining us. I really appreciate it. And thanks to all of our community members for coming out tonight. I hope you feel more educated and that you enjoyed your time here. And thank you all again.
Thank you.